Hello YouTube. The mission today is to ride the Devil's Triangle in Tennessee with Greatrydes. But first we're looking over the Brushy Mountain Correctional Center, which closed in 2009 in favor of the newer facility, Morgan County Correctional Complex. This was a grim place, and the whole was certainly very much that. You can see that the walls and the razor wire and the gun tower and the blocks of cells are pretty grim looking, pretty plain. And this was truly a pretty awful place. It was built in 1896. This is a sign introducing the cafeteria, which is replete with beautiful artwork done by the inmates of this prison. Interesting tour and a great lunch.
Thank you. Oh yeah, and thanks for lunch.
don't think so. But what I would like to do is pull over for a second and get my mic hooked up. I forgot to do that when we started. Yeah. Boy, that first stretch was a workout.
Yes.
I mean, all of it is. Oh, yeah.
Well, now that at least some of the technical difficulties have been resolved, like, yes, you do need to have your mic hooked up in order to get engine sounds. As much as I enjoyed playing The Ride of the Valkyries by Wagner, I think the sound of the engine and the wind and everything is what this ride is partly all about. Especially being on these great twisties with my motovlogging newfound friend Greatrydes, who comes from Ohio and who publishes lots and lots of videos, including some really neat how-tos and product reviews, and I've learned a lot from him. Now, unfortunately, I can't hardly keep up with him because he's a much more experienced trike rider than I am, not to mention the fact that he's also 30 years younger than I am, but who's counting, right? Ooh, this is a nice twisty. This must be one of those switchbacks that they've talked about. Now, there are good stretches of straight or gentle curves on the road, but there's also some really harrowing hairpins. And this is a ride I wanted to take a couple of years ago and somehow managed to miss out on it. And then last year I wanted to ride it with Brer Dan, and he was unfortunately out of town. Not only out of town, but out of state. So I figured, okay, well maybe this year. Well, guess what? Brer Dan's out of town, out of state again. So I don't know when I'm going to get to ride it with him. He's a great riding buddy, and I sure appreciate his company, not to mention his Tennessee Southern charm. Reflecting briefly on what we saw at Brushy Mountain Correctional Center, which is now a tourist trap, sort of. I mean, they have the tours of the facility, and on duty the day we were there, they had one former CO who was leading tours, and there was at least one, possibly two, former residents of that facility. Whoa! Another nice twisty. They just kind of sneak up on you on this road. But fortunately, most of the really sharp ones are well marked. But touching again on Brushy Mountain, it was opened in 1896 and was really not renovated a great deal over that time period. And in the museum, there's lots of pictures of former inmates. And there was a register of inmates that we were looking at whose crimes varied from murder and rape right down to petty larceny. And I thought, gee, that's kind of unfortunate that the guy that maybe stole something small winds up in prison with a guy that's a murderer. Might be sitting down to lunch with him, who knows? But of course, a lot of murders did take place inside. And I was surprised to see on the map of the facility, another nice twisty, that there was actually a whipping post. And in the museum, there was a big leather strap. And I guess there isn't too much doubt about what that was for. Labor was forced in the old days. The men worked 12-hour shifts in the mine, and for obviously very little pay. And there was a picture of a group coming off duty, and they were covered from head to toe with coal dust. And I can't imagine how much of that may have wound up in their lungs. You have heard of black lung disease, right? It was a primitive place. It was an awful place. Prison is never a nice place, but Brushy Mountain, being as old as it was probably especially bad. I used to volunteer at the Morgan County Correctional Complex, which is the successor to this prison, and the prisoners that were in Brushy Mountain were gradually moved into the newer facility. Well, let's just finish out this ride, and I'll quit jabbering and let you see what I have seen. And also, I want to thank you for riding along with me, and I hope you enjoyed this ride, and maybe you'll get a chance to do it also someday. The Devil's Triangle is a great ride. So this July 28th ride is coming close to an end for the video, and I want to thank Greatrydes for riding it with me. I hope you enjoyed the ride. So from here on out, ride safe, keep the rubber side down. Speedster Johnny out.